Hello, my name is Ryan James and I'm here at FODAC, and today we'll be demonstrating some assistive equipment with my partner.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. We're here to talk about some assistive technology or assistive devices or adaptive equipment. They're all kind of used interchangeably for items that help make daily tasks a little bit easier for people who have disabilities. So we're going to talk about eating today. And the first thing you want to do is to create a non-slip surface for your dishes so that when you're scooping, they're not moving around and creating all kinds of frustration and mess. So there's different items out there. The first one I'm going to show you is the Dyson non-slip placemat. And this is a very, it's kind of a thick silicone-like material. It can be cut to size. It can be used under dishes. It can be placed under writing pads so that when you're writing, your pad isn't moving around. It can be placed under cutting boards so that while you're cutting, it keeps it stable. You can also place it under pill bottles. When you're opening pills one-handedly, it's not moving around, so it just gives you a little bit more stability that way. So you can place something like this under your dishes, or you can, for an even cheaper option, you can purchase a non-slip rug pad, and these can be purchased at Walmart, Target, any kind of discount store, and just cut them up to size, and this is placed under your dishes, and then nothing's moving. It just kind of creates a nice stable surface for scooping your food.
And when we're selecting dishes that are assistive equipment, we usually would do a high to low scoop dish. As you can see, this dish has a high to low pattern, higher walls on one side, slightly lower but still built up walls on the other. Preferably you want to position your dish, say you're doing this for one-handed eating, you have the lower side on the side that you hold your utensil with, so that you scoop here and then you press up against the high wall, so it's easier to get your food onto your utensil. If you do not have the option of having the Dyson or the non-slide surface, this particular dish, the Freedomware dish, comes with a non-slide pad on the bottom, and it's just removable. You can just turn it and it comes off separately. Then you can wash your dish in the top of your dishwasher and then apply back on by just simply screwing it back on to have your dish stick. And as you can see, it's not going anywhere, so it is great. Just want to make sure that's tightened on there all the way. It's a great dish for one-handed eating, as I said before, and some precautions that you do want to make when you're using this dish is we recommend that you heat up your food in a separate container and then place it onto a cool Freedomware dish or high to low scoop dish. This prevents any chances of burning yourself when holding the plate. It is a microwave safe dish, but we recommend heating up your food in another container and transferring them onto this dish.
So those are great for wheelchair trays or bed trays, somewhere where you don't have a lot of space to, or a non-slip placemat wouldn't really work. And those are called scoop dishes. So if you're looking for that, that's what you look for. And if you don't want to purchase something special like that, you could purchase or use a pie plate, something that has a higher edge to help you scoop. It gives you a little bit of leverage. The next thing we're going to talk about is utensils. And there's different kinds tailored for different problems. These are called a built-up handle or a built-up grip, and it's just a larger grip in case you have decreased grip strength. It makes it much easier to grasp than the smaller, narrower handles, and it's round so it's comfortable in your hand. And these are called bendable, and what they do is they bend at a 90-degree angle. So if you have decreased motion in your arm or your wrist, it decreases the need for turning, and it just helps you get the food to your mouth a little bit easier. You don't need quite as much motion in your arm. So this one actually has both characteristics. It's got the built-up handle and the bendable utensil. And then there's something, this is called either a universal cuff or a universal holder, a universal utensil holder. It's got several different names. But what it does is it clips on to a regular utensil that you maybe have at home, so you don't have to purchase anything special. And then it also clips onto your wrist or your hand. so that if you don't have any grip strength, you can still use your utensils without having to grip them. And the great thing about these universal holders is that they can be attached to anything. So any kind of utensil, a hairbrush, a toothbrush, whatever you might be having difficulty with.
And to stay on the same idea, with decreased grip strength, this is a hook utensil, and as you can see, this aspect of the spoon is adjustable, and it slides onto your hand like this, and then it tightens around it. So once you have it fitted in a comfortable position, you can just slide your hand in and out of it. And this helps for decreased grip strength, or if you have limited range of motion in your fingers and you can't get your fingers around the handle of the utensil, this helps as you scoop with your spoon or fork. And then also, as Stephanie mentioned earlier, there was the built-up handle. This is a built-up spoon, but it also has a weighted feature to it. And there's this weighted feature helps for conditions like Parkinson's, or if for any reason you may have tremors while you're eating, which makes it difficult to keep food on your utensil. The weighted aspect of this utensil fights or resists that tremor and makes it easier to keep the food on your utensil. This here is another weighted utensil. It looks kind of like your average, normal, everyday spoon, but actually if you feel it in your hand, it's actually quite a bit heavier, and it is for the same purpose, to prevent tremors. This one's recommended because it looks like an everyday spoon. It doesn't look like it's anything that's out of the ordinary, so it's just it's a discreet way to have adaptive equipment or adaptive device. And I think that's all of our utensils that we have to show.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about meal preparation. And we're going to start with cutting. And before we actually move on to that, I just wanted to mention something called a rocker knife. And it is basically for one-handed cutting of your food. And I don't have one here, unfortunately, to show you, but it has an easy built-up grip on it, and it's just got a curved blade so that when you're cutting, you're just using a rocking motion, so that instead of a slicing that you need two utensils with, you can do this with one hand, and that's called a rocker knife. So this is called a one-handed cutting board. And what it does is it secures your food on these little spikes so that when you place the food on here, it keeps it stable and allows you to cut with one hand, so you're not worried about having to hold the food in place. And these little side guards will keep the food that you've chopped from falling off and getting on your counter and making a mess and getting frustrated. So this is called a one-handed cutting board.
And if you're doing a meal prep that involves a larger surface area, we have here, it is called the Swedish cutting board. And right now it might look like an ordinary cutting board, but it also has many different adaptive features on it. So let's say that you needed one-handed meal prep. You have these prongs here that stick into these numerous holes that are throughout the device. Right here, position them at the appropriate width, and then it has a vise feature, which, as you can see, slides on here, and this can hold things in place at different widths. So let's say that you want to whisk or stir up something in a bowl. You place the bowl here, position your vise at the appropriate width, and then you have your one-handed stirring technique without having to hold a dish down, and it prevents any spill risk or anything like that. It's also useful if you want to cut larger food items, such as like a loaf of bread, things like that. Place it across here, and you can one-handedly cut it across. Also, a similar feature to what was on the one-handed cutting board right here is the prongs will also fit right there, and that can be used to hold down fruits, vegetables, things like that, and using your one-handed cutting techniques. And finally, they also come with the non-stick feature, which you just screw in here, and it has the prongs, and it doesn't stick, or it doesn't move around.
Well.
And this one also has the non-slide.
Just press it down, and it's not moving.
So these are very useful for during meal prep. It shortens the meal prep process, and it just lowers the strain that it puts on you by trying to figure out how to cut with one hand. So these are some very highly recommended devices.
So for things like opening jars, we don't have any to show you, but there are lots of things available especially on Amazon. There's one thing called a one-touch can opener, where all you do is place the little device over the can, you press a button, and then it just kind of travels around the can and opens it for you. So there's really very little needed grasp strength or any kind of strength to open your can. There's also different, homemade things. You can cut up a mouse pad and use that as a grip on your cans. You may already have this at home. There's also something called an easy-off jar opener that I believe goes right under your counter, and it's kind of an electric can opener.
Mhm.
So you just place the can under it and press a button, and it opens the can for you. And I think I just have this one other picture to show you. This is called a knife guard, and this is just mainly for safety purposes. If you can see the picture up here, it's just placed on top of the food and holds the food in place so that you have a nice good grip on it, so that you don't have your fingers in the way of cutting. It just holds it for you. This obviously is not for one-handed use, but for someone who may have decreased grasp, especially in their fingers, arthritis. It just gives you a little bit safer cutting environment, so it places this guard in between your hand and the knife. And that is called the Safe Slice Knife Guard. So that is pretty much all we wanted to present to you. We hope that it's been helpful to you. And if you have any questions, feel free to give a call to FODAC. Thanks
Thank you.
for watching.